So this is the story about the time I wrote a script for WKRP. But why did it end up on Laverne and Shirley? To paraphrase a famous quote, Hollywood is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. And there's also a negative side. Keep that in mind during this story. In 1979, I was doing mornings and programming KRIG in Odessa, Texas. The owners were a husband and wife team. They were incredibly supportive, and the trade publication Radio&Records was having their annual convention in Los Angeles. They decided to take me with them, and we were going to go to Los Angeles to the convention. The convention was in March at the Century Plaza Hotel in LA, and that's the time when many of the television shows are taped. So I called around and was able to get us tickets to see a taping of WKRP in Cincinnati. That show, which had cracked the top 20, was wildly popular, especially with folks in the broadcast industry. We got to LA, and the convention was packed with radio folks and record artists. I even found myself in front of this huge silver bowl of shrimp cocktail next to Michelle Phillips from the Mamas and Papas. And on the second day, across the street when we were having lunch, we saw Olivia Newton-John shooting her music video for Totally Hot. I even got her autograph. That night, we drove down Sunset to the Golden West Studios where WKRP in Cincinnati was being taped. We sat in the bleachers, getting ready to watch the action. Hugh Wilson, the producer, came out to do the audience warm-up. And when it was time for questions, I raised my hand and said, well, I'm in radio and I'm also a writer. What does it take to write a script for WKRP? He said they love to hear from folks in the business, but it has to be submitted through an agent. That night, the episode that was being taped was called I Do for Now, and it guest starred Hoyt Axton. When we got back to Odessa, I started working and came up with an idea where a consultant would be hired by Mama Carlson, who would come in and then fire the big guy, Arthur Carlson. Oddly enough, there would be an episode of WKRP called The Consultant about 2 years later, but it was very different from my script. So somehow I got a list of all of the agents in Los Angeles, and I called every one of them to see who would represent me. Every one of them said no, until one of them said yes. She told me that she was having lunch with Hugh Wilson in the next week, and I should get her the script as soon as possible. She also told me to register the script with the Writers Guild, and that cost me about $20. One of the secretaries at the radio station helped me type it up so it would be nice and neat, and I sent it off the fastest way possible at that time. That was way before FedEx. A couple of weeks later, I called the agent back to get an update. She said that she had had lunch with Hugh Wilson, but she had presented a different script. Although I was disappointed, I sent a copy of the script to a friend of mine in LA who had had some television writing credits to see what he thought of it. He loved the script and encouraged me to keep writing, which I really didn't, because WKRP was my touchstone and I knew I could write about radio. But one of the favorite lines that I wrote in that script that I sent to them was when the consultant comes in and fires Arthur Carlson, and Carlson says, "What do you mean I'm fired?" And the consultant says, "I mean you're fired, beached, canned, put out to pasture, given the old heave-ho." Now, fast forward a couple of years, it's 1983, I'm in New Orleans at WNOE, and one night at home I'm watching a rerun of Laverne and Shirley. It was an episode called Window on Main Street, where the premise is the girls are living in the home of the future. It's in a department store window. Of course, everything goes wrong, hilarity ensues, and the department store manager comes in and fires them. So what do you mean we're fired? And the department store manager says, you guessed it,
fired, sacked, dismissed, canned, given the old heave-ho.
Well, they made an edit, but it's still my line. What happened? Well, most likely the script got cut up and passed around. Remember that quote about the long plastic hallway? That's Radio Stories for this time. More to come. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. For now, that's a wrap.